Whether you've been homeschooling for years or you're just thinking about taking the plunge, let us help you put the edge in your child's education here on The Homeschool Edge with your host, public school teacher turned homeschool hero, Aaron Potzik.
Welcome to the Homeschool Edge. I am Aaron, and I can't believe it. This is already episode 8. Ooh, our guest today is an amazing woman. She was a public school teacher turned homeschool coach now, and she's definitely a big online influencer in the homeschool community, and I can relate a lot with her public school experience. Yeah, for our Get Educated section, the resources I'm going to show you are all straight from Jessica Ellis of Heavenly Homeschool. That's who we interview this week, and all of these companies and resources are fabulous, and guess what? You get a discount too. We'll take a peek in those public schools and see what kind of craziness is going on in there. And up next, it's Homeroom Headlines. Welcome everybody to Homeroom Headlines. Yeah, and as you know, if you are a frequent buzzer, maybe, you would know that this segment we have on Principal B. Principal B, tell us what's new.
I am the frequent flyer. I am the buzzing bee, and I am here to learn about what's happening out there in the public schools.
And to give brilliant commentary.
Well, you know, I have my moments.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. All right, Principal B, check this out. From the New York Times, teachers are missing more school and there are too few substitutes. Now, take this along with many other articles written just last year and this year already. Add to that there is a major teacher shortage. And we have not seen the public school officials panic like this in a long time. It's no surprise that the attacks on homeschool families have heightened because I think they see us as their number one enemy. So
Could very well be. Now, this is all news to me. Why are there teacher shortages? Do you have any insight on that?
I sure do. And that's probably because a lot of the teachers are come to the end of their rope. A lot of parents and teachers too, like the person I interviewed today, realized, I'm giving my heart and soul to these kids in this classroom, and now I've got kids of my own. I think a lot of thinking has kind of shifted since the pandemic. Homeschooling's doubled. And I think we're going through quite the societal change at the moment.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so
I'll defer to you on that, but that seems to make sense.
yes, and our guest later, Jessica Ellis, runs homeschool, Heavenly Homeschool, and it's amazing. You're going to want to check her out, just like all of you. Now, to the article. Teachers are missing more school and there are too few substitutes. Here's how it starts. When teachers do miss work, there are often not enough substitutes to fill in. In Des Moines, officials can typically find substitutes for a little over half of the 300 daily absences. Now, let me stop the article right there. First paragraph, full stop. The Des Moines district here is saying they can only fill half of the missing teachers that are out with substitutes. What do you suppose the other half of classrooms do?
I think they're watching movies. They're surfing the internet.
Yes, they are either A, and I'm speaking from experience, being split into smaller groups and shoved into other teachers' classes. Oh, what could go wrong there?
Sounds optimal for the education of our youth.
For all of them, the kids that are missing their teacher do nothing, or some busy worksheet, or the kids are shipped to the gym to sit on the bleachers while the PE is going on, or
Nice.
we pull teachers who have other jobs or planning periods that they desperately need to come sit in to the classes, all of which every bit of that is completely negative. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I would agree with you there. Not seeing a lot of positives.
Yeah. Now, to answer partially the question you have, here's what the New York Times continues on and says: the shortage of substitutes has grown more acute since the pandemic, experts say, because fewer people are entering the teaching profession. There's another teacher shortage reason.
All right.
Than a decade ago, and there has been more teacher turnover in recent years. So,
Okay.
not only is this affecting, they're talking about affecting the substitutes, but both of these things are affecting the teachers, the amount of teachers we need to cover classes. So, we have a couple of reasons given there. Now,
All right.
as schools, to combat this, turn to long term substitutes for unfilled positions, that leaves fewer substitutes available for days when teachers take off. And associate professor at Kansas State, Tuan Nguyen, I believe, who has studied teacher shortages nationally, this is what she says: that these more and more subs are captured as long term, and that means less subs to move around the district. The pool of substitutes has also changed, educators say. Some substitutes were reluctant after the pandemic closures to return after the pandemic closures. Others took
Right.
different jobs and never came back. The pay for substitutes, which averages around $20 an hour, is less competitive in a strong economy, which we certainly don't have a strong economy, but
No,
Principal B,
that shouldn't be a problem.
let me paint a picture for you of the typical substitute, okay?
All
And
right.
let you tell me if you would do this for $20 an hour. Okay. So you are sent into a classroom of, say, middle school or high school kids. You have no idea, you have no expertise in the subject that you are substituting for. The kids know that their teacher is gone. And general rule, since I've been in school, and I'm sure since you've been in school, is hey, it's a play day. It's not a serious day
Sure.
because the
Right.
sub's here. Right, right, right. And so all day long, you have to listen to take this class, and believe me, I've been called out of my room when I was a teacher multiple times to go get substitutes classes under control. It's a thing, and the kids
Got to
with
go in
this
there with the riot gear and the fire hose.
right. Well, I mean, that would be my preference, but
Sure.
unfortunately, that's looked down on to use those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you walk in and see these substitutes, and it is just chaos. The kids, on the whole, in a lot of school districts, aren't listening. I mean, they're listening less and less to their teachers that are there every day, but they're not listening to the subs. Kids are more vocal, outgoing, more disrespectful, so they're getting talked back to. Kids aren't following directions, and you have to do this for 8 hours a day. So, Principal B, can we sign you up to be a substitute?
Well, I'm ashamed. I'm too ashamed to tell you what I'd be willing to do for $20 an hour. However, I would not be willing to do that.
Wow. Okay, that's eye-opening there. Firstly, because of the first thing you said, but seriously, yeah, I mean, you can this would be a nightmare. Now, there are a few
Clearly.
subs, and these are the ones that they catch up as their long-term subs that now are no longer in the district's pool that do a good job wherever they go. There are a
Right.
lot of subs that just have the knack with kids and
Mhm.
can make sure the kids know, hey, let it be an easy day. No worries here. Just get this done. And they go through the day, and I'm sure it's worth all of $20 an hour for them. But
Sure.
those teachers aren't in the normal sub poll, or those substitutes aren't in the normal substitute poll when teachers call out. So you see the problem.
Is there any, I'm just curious, is there any financial advantage for the districts to be employing substitutes versus full-time teachers?
Well, I mean, as of course, a teacher has a contract and they have sick days built in. So they're still paying the teacher, and then they're paying the substitute on top of what they're already paying the teacher.
Oh, okay. So then that's a no. So it's not
Right.
even like the schools are incentivized to go down this hell path.
Right.
It's really just
Right, right.
yes.
Now,
Okay.
now I know when I was a teacher, Principal B, And a lot of teachers felt this way. It's easier just to go in when you feel like garbage because making sub plans, writing out what to do every single
Right.
period or every hour of the day. I taught sixth grade one year, and I taught a lot of courses with the same class. And the amount of writing and planning, and you don't leave, you take your books home and you get sick. Well, you got to go. I did many times where I got up at 6 in the morning. I had the flu and got in there before anyone, wrote my sub plans in, and then went back home. And we're
Yeah.
talking 25-minute drive either way. So, I mean,
I would think that
it's
the sub plans
nuts.
would be. I would think the sub plans would be easy to write because it's like the itinerary is first for the first 20 minutes you will all ignore me and be very loud.
Yes.
The next 20 minutes you will engage with me in a disrespectful manner. And for the
Yes.
last 30 minutes, everyone will just sort of leave early from the class.
Yeah, and one of the little known things of people who aren't in the education field, you're almost in trouble if you don't leave sub plans. Like
Mm,
the responsibility for the substitute knowing what to do that day is yours.
sure.
Regardless if you're deathly ill, you went home that night, got sick, and can't, it's your fault if
Wow.
subs don't have plans. And
Yeah. Well, I mean,
so,
obviously the subs can't just walk in blind or like they don't know what to
right,
do. But
right.
as the teachers in a bind, like you said, they're really sick. They, yeah, it's not great, Aaron.
Yeah,
It's
when
not
you're,
great.
when you're concerned with keeping your class moving forward, you want to put in that they do new stuff, but then you can never really you can just assume it's not going to get done. So,
Yeah.
what a lot of teachers will do is just make a subfolder and then just
Mhm.
throw junk and fluff in for every period, and
Right.
that's that.
Coloring
Uh,
pages.
you're right. So this art, right? That's actually true on a lot of them, even into high school. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, coloring pages. Yes. Now the New York Times article does give a little bit about what happens when no substitute is available. Remaining teachers often have to do double duty, taking extra students in their classroom or covering another class on their break. I think I mentioned all three of those, which
Yeah.
can lead to them requesting days off in the future. Go figure. You
Sure. Getting the
overburden
burnout.
and our overburdened teacher already. Guess what's going to happen? Yes. And then the most wonderful thing, the districts have paid for a reading strategist or a math strategist to go into each of the classrooms. Then they get called in as subs for the day. So not only is the teacher's class missing, but all the extra help the district has paid for with these kids is not even
Wow.
usable.
That's
And so,
terrible.
yeah, it becomes a big, giant problem. So, yeah,
But clearly the solution is homeschool. Am I right? I mean, isn't that the best solution, all of this?
I would say it is. And Principal B, the wonderful thing about when you're a homeschool parent and you're sick and you're not feeling well, if your kids are old enough, they just do their work anyway. And if your
Right.
kids are younger and they can't, day off for everyone.
Yeah.
With the homeschooling schedule being so free and open, you can school the next day, even if you didn't plan on it before, or do a little extra the next couple of days. Because come on, what are you doing with
Well,
your kids if you're schooling them longer than 3 hours a day, like structured stuff? It's not hard to double that up.
yeah, I was sitting here thinking as we're going through all the problems that the schools are in the middle of. And I was trying to think in my head what the possible solutions were, and it's like, well, there's probably some solutions to that big cluster cuddle, but the simple one is to just avoid it entirely. And to your
Right.
point, it's like, yeah, at home school, we have found it's very efficient. So 3 hours a day, usually that can cover it. If the child is dawdling, okay, it drags out.
Right.
Or we've got a younger one who's got a lot of energy, so we give him run around breaks and let
Of
him
course.
do that kind of stuff. But you have that flexibility.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. Yeah.
and then you say, yeah, fine, that's a day off today, but we'll just make it up over the next couple of days and play it out.
Right. Right. So, I don't know the answer to this problem, Principal B, but with all the articles out with teacher shortages and now all these new articles about substitute shortages, the public schools are hurting right now in a big time way. So
Wow.
we have some solutions for them
Oh,
right here, and for you parents.
sounds great.
Yeah.
Ah.
So now, Principal B, our wonderful homeschool coach influencer, was a previous public school teacher, and we actually talk about some things that are causing teachers to leave the field. And some of the unhealthy reasons that keep teachers in, like guilt from leaving all the kids, and they know this scenario we just talked about is where they're going to be plunged into. So yeah, you'll love to hear this discussion, and the rest of you are going to love to hear it too. And up next, I want you guys to come get educated, and it's going to be a little different Get Educated segment. See you there. All right, welcome to Get Educated. Well, our feature resource is actually a bunch of resources. It is our guest's personal website, and it is called Heavenly Homeschool. Everything she has, all the social media channels, they're all Heavenly Homeschool. Now, if you go to this page, you are going to be happy because you're going to get a lot out of it. First of all, you're going to get to see all of the resources and things she's associated with. And when you click on her resource guide for free editable scheduling, a lot of people have problems with scheduling. She does it for you. You get it. You sign up for her email and you get free monthly and holiday activity packs. You see, you get free trials to programs. You get 10, 20, 25% off a lot of programs. And oh yeah, there's even an OutSchool $20 free. If you've never taken an OutSchool class before, I would highly recommend taking one of her classes. And then she's just got all of these links to things that she likes, free resources, things you can use. Look at the reward charts, Editable. She's got all this stuff for free, you guys. And so you want to make sure and go to this site and put your name in her email subscription list, because then you get the resources like right on demand. Look, it's still going. How many things she is sending you, showing you, linking out to. Ooh, even some motherhood merch that she likes. Oh man, you got to check that out for sure. And then she gives all the links to her different social media channels. Now, she also has this section called Free Resource Library. And look at this. You get homeschool laws by state. You get her favorite homeschooling books. She's got all of her channels there right for you to see that she's available on. And I cannot recommend this stuff enough. You will hear from her next in our interview. The way she goes through and decides whether she's actually going to use and promote some of these sites, I think you're going to be pretty impressed. Now, before we go to that interview, let's take a peek on what's going on in the public schools. Uh-oh. Get ready.
Boys, here we go. Screwball in his side pocket.
All right, here we are at the public school peak. Now, you guys know my heart goes out to some of these public school teachers because they're just so genuine and so focused on the outward of things that they're doing, not focused at all on themselves. So I sit down with a teacher who's about to start for the first time teaching a class of 4-year-olds. And I try to help her out with a little bit of dilemma. You know, I like to give back.
Hi, so I have a small dilemma.
Okay, let's hear it. I taught for many, many years. Let's see if I can help.
I am starting a new job on Monday. So the kids are going to call me either Mr. or Mrs. Jamie. It depends on what I want, but I, as a non-binary being, I don't know what to pick. I feel like Mrs. would be easier for the kids, but Mr. makes me feel better. But I also kind of want to try mix, but I don't know if the kids can do that. I don't.
Well, even though you haven't mentioned it, I'm sure your primary concern as a teacher is going to be the well-being of those kids. And so maybe you should figure it out. It could be confusing for these kids, you know?
And then what do they do when they ask me if I'm a boy or a girl? I'm not. don't know.
How old are these kids gonna be?
It's young kids. My class is gonna be 4-year-olds, so I don't know. And then I don't know if I want to go by Jamie or Jamie Ray.
Well, my advice is stay out of the classroom. Are you kidding me? I mean, what was with those like giant sabers hanging from her glass? And if you go back and watch that, you want to count how many times she says I, me, my. I didn't even hear any thoughts about the students she was going to teach. So public schools, this is more of what's coming your way if you're keeping your kids in the public schools. I hate to tell you. All right, everybody, it's time. We're going to go to that big sit-down interview in the teacher's lounge with Jessica Ellis. You don't want to miss it. All right, everyone, welcome to a very, very special Teacher's Lounge interview. I am sitting here today with a public school educator turned homeschool coach, Miss Jessica Ellis. Jessica, how are you today?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm just fabulous. It is the Teacher's Lounge, so if you need to, there's plenty of stale coffee you can fill your mug with if you'd like. So yeah, I usually drink a few cups anyway. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, okay. So, Jessica, you started as a public school elementary teacher. What initially drew you to the education field? Like, did you always know you wanted to be involved in education?
No, I actually was in the military. I was in the Navy and I was living in Japan at the time. And a lot of our military students were going to school on base. And I started volunteering there, honestly, as just a way to get the volunteer hours in. I was doing online college at the time. And that's where I thought, I think this is something I could do after the military.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah, kind of a rare entry.
Yeah. Now, as you started public school, what were the things that you liked about teaching?
So I started as an on-site tutor, actually,
Okay.
at a public school middle school. And that was, a shock of a lifetime, just middle school in general.
Oh, I know
because
very well.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Yeah. And
Yes.
it was very weird because I was early in college. And so, I mean, I wasn't much older than some of these kids. And so that's when I knew. I was like, all right, maybe middle school is not the direction I want to take, but maybe elementary. So I switched my degree path actually to elementary education. And here in Florida, most of our universities, they force you, I said force in the beginning, to get ESE certified, which is special education. We can't really call it that anymore, but I still do, certified. And so through that certification, I started landing, internships into schools that had special needs units and things to get those hours. Which eventually just rolled into me accepting my first job actually at a charter school. So I've done the middle school, I've done the charter school, I've done public regulars.
Yes.
I feel like I've done it all at this point. And so the things that I enjoyed in the beginning were really those ESE babies, like having that involvement in the special needs realm. It was so rewarding. Despite all of the stuff, the pressure that's put on special needs teachers, especially, just that rewarding feeling. That was really what drove me to stay in it, despite all the other things.
Yeah, I would say teachers, especially for the most part, who are have these, why I quit videos, and I think I watched yours on YouTube as well.
Yep.
But the reason that teachers stay hooked in is because, we care about these kids deeply, and it is so rewarding to see light bulbs go off, to see that many kids are happy to see you, and they appreciate what you're doing. So that part I totally get. That was the main thing. That was
in there, right? Yeah. It's like the guilt that goes along with that too. Now that I'm a parent, we face parent guilt and mom guilt and dad guilt and things like that. But so many times in the middle of the school year where I'm just like, am I in the twilight zone? Like I need to quit tomorrow.
I
But
know.
you just, that guilt of knowing, I mean, you know full well
Mhm.
that a
Yep.
long-term sub's going to come in. It's going to be a hot mess express.
Yep.
So it was like almost like holding on because of that allegiance to my students who I still love and admire. And there was a lot of guilt that went along with resigning, even though I did it the right way. I didn't just
Yes.
leave in the middle of the year, but still, I still feel a little bit of guilt.
Right, because you know what's coming after you is going to be probably far worse, especially if they just throw a
Exactly.
sub in there, you know.
Oh yeah.
And I felt the same way. And what a great feeling to base a career on, right? Guilt.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously. Talk about like trauma. Like, am I in
Right.
this like abusive relationship with my career right now? Like, what is going on here? Especially because, and this is
Yeah.
another thing too, like, you know, you go to school and you get this degree in education and you have this vision that you are going to retire and that's
Mhm.
your calling. And then sometimes, and I hear this a lot from teachers, well, I don't know what else to do with my degree
Yes.
other than teach. And teaching, education degrees are one of those weird
Yep.
degrees that it's like you're either a teacher or you better get lucky and
Right.
find some other realm. It's not like as versatile of a degree as a lot of people I think it is.
Yeah, I think that's an equally as big drawback as like, well, what can I do? I just have an education degree, you know? Well,
Yeah,
let me
exactly.
ask you this, and I know you've got a full-length video and other things about this, but can you give us briefly some of the top few things that like drove you to be like, okay, as much as I love it and as much as I like these things, I just can't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, first and foremost, becoming a mom really is
Mhm.
what changed everything.
Yep.
Because I was like a lifer teacher. I mean, that was my
Mhm.
whole life. And I did not think that having a child of my own was ever going to change that. And I am not anti-public school. Like I think there's a lot of misconception about homeschooling parents being so anti-public school. Like, I mean, I have seen public school work wonders for children that otherwise might be on the streets or have no support system at home and things like that.
Mhm.
But for me, becoming a mom and recognizing how much time was being lost with my own children
Yeah.
so that I could go put my whole heart and soul into other people's children.
Mhm.
And then seeing on the other side of being a teacher, how little involvement their parents had with them, and me being a mom at home thinking, how could you
Yeah.
not be more
Mhm.
involved with your child? So that was like the biggest thing.
For
just
sure.
just realizing I need to put my heart into my own home before I can pour it out into others.
Yeah.
And that guilt again, like feeling responsible for several different families when I've got my own family to take care of, as selfish as that sounds. And that was the biggest thing. And then, of course, like just the behaviors alone
Mhm.
are, people don't understand it. Like it is not an exaggeration. I tell everybody to please just
Right.
go volunteer in a school, not for like an hour, not even for a day, but try a week. It's
Yeah.
not an exaggeration what's going on.
Yeah.
And this is elementary level. Like,
I know.
oh.
I know.
So at that point, I knew, I was like, well, I know darn well I'm not putting my kids in public school,
Yeah,
but
right.
we'll do private, right? I'm like, we'll do private or
Right.
something. But I never thought homeschooling. And to be
Yes.
honest with you, private schools, we toured a lot of private schools and a lot of them were amazing. But again, it's like my whole teaching paycheck would have gone to private school
Right.
tuition and
Right.
daycare tuition for my youngest. So what am I even doing? It was like this whole epiphany. Like what, and I pray that more parents have the opportunity to have this similar epiphany
Mhm.
because we're so just conditioned to work the 9 to 5, put
Yep.
your kids in daycare, put your kids in school. And it wasn't until COVID where I realized maybe that's not the way things should
Yeah,
be,
right.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and I know I can speak freely here when it comes to the Bible and our role as Christians, our number one job is our family.
Yeah.
We're not going to be held to account one day on other people's families. Maybe
Right.
the kids we interacted with in our brief time with them, but we're really going to be held to account big time for our own families. So that's a really big thing. I think,
Absolutely.
yeah. So what you said is what I hear a lot of people saying. Well, I know I didn't want public school for my kids, so I thought, okay, private school, and then it'll go on a little while, and then okay, homeschooling's the way to go.
Right.
Yeah, our guest last week, who is a massive parental rights advocate, fighting the good fight all over the country, that was her progression too. Like, oh wait, that's in public school. I don't want my kid there, but I can't do it. Let's do something else. And then it was like after a time, oh, homeschooling. Okay, yeah, I get it.
Exactly. Any kind of system, I feel like even some homeschool co-ops, anything that is a system is going to have those negatives where it's like, okay, could I just do this better on my own while still not secluding my child? It's not like, they're the whole social,
oh my
the
goodness,
whole social argument.
We'll rip
right?
that.
But that was
we'll rip that Band-Aid off later. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So you spoke a little bit about why homeschooling and that sort of thing. So now recently, or maybe not so recently, you are still an active, very influential homeschooler in the homeschool community, and now you've actually turned some of your focus toward helping other people. Encouraging them or coaching them along the way as homeschoolers. So what kind of things can you offer people that are like, hey, I just started homeschooling, I don't know what to do, or I need help with this?
I feel like right now, my specialty, I've kind of just fallen into this role of helping with the organization piece. And I think that it comes from me being a teacher. And I do run a very organized homeschool, and I get a lot of hate on social media for that. Like, oh, well, you're just emulating public school and you're homeschool. And it's like, okay, there's a very fine line. And no, we don't have a bell schedule, but I need some kind of structure.
Yes.
And so when moms are coming to me, which this was totally by chance, I just started posting some random homeschooling videos on TikTok, really. And then the sheer amount of messages that I would get, now it's to the point it's so overwhelming. I've got to find some kind of like call system or something, because I want to help. There comes that guilt again, just wanting to help so many people and not having the time. But the number one thing is like, how do I get started? Where do I find curriculum? How do I do a schedule? It's like the how-tos. And so I do also try to help, emotionally, because this is an emotional roller coaster, and trying to give that positivity and that encouragement. But my strong suit right now is really, okay, let's get you started. Let's sit down. Let's look up your homeschool laws. Let's get organized with a schedule. And really just making it simplifying the process instead, because it is overwhelming, especially if you don't know anybody. I didn't know anybody that had homeschooled before, and I was highly against homeschooling. So this was new to me as well. But I think if I can just provide a system where, okay, we do this, check the box. Next, we're going to do this, check the box. And that's kind of how my brain operates. And it seems to be helping for a lot of other people.
Yeah. The idea of just simplifying everything down is, invaluable. And so if you're looking into homeschooling, anybody listening, then it seems daunting. Use resources like Jessica here, because they're using their wisdom. She's using her wisdom to help you out and get over some of those big hurdles that you might realize later, okay, that actually wasn't that big of a deal.
Yep,
and you do need people to encourage you and cheerlead you and keep you moving through some of the early challenges. So I think it's a great thing. I think it's a really great thing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Now, so you have some resources people can get. And I noticed some are just out there, free to get. I know you have, you have a step-by-step getting started homeschooling guide. Is this something people can access?
Yeah. Well, right now, all of my how-to step-by-steps, that's just content that I am putting out there free. All of my channels, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. One day it will become like an ebook or something that I can like actually monetize, because I got to make money over here too.
It's true. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. It's right now. I want to get it out there for free. And then my homeschool schedule as well. Like I just drafted one up on Canva. I've got it on PowerPoint and I'm just sending it out. Like whoever goes to my website, they just type in their email and it is yours. That was one big thing. Was, you know, you buy these cute little homeschool planners and these little calendars, and then you're writing everything and you got to rewrite it the following week. And so I just, again, simplified it, threw it up on PowerPoint, made one on Canva, and now people can just go in and physically type their own schedules in and print it out, right? So you're not rewriting stuff every single week. But yeah, mostly everything right now it's just out there. It's just out there as content, it's just free content. I'm still navigating my way through social media and marketing and whatnot, but take it for free.
You're doing a great job. You're a big time influence. I've noticed, and your content is fantastic. You know, I got stuck in one of those little rabbit hole traps when I found your page and just video after video after video. I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a great idea. So let's talk about the homeschooling programs you use and recommend. Did I see some kind of classical conversation work that was happening in one of your videos?
Yeah, we are. That is what we don't necessarily call it a co-op, but I just say that word to help simplify it for everybody else. But yes, that is, we are part of a classical conversations homeschool community.
Yes.
And so that is just one very small part of what we do. And so we just add on curriculums in addition to that classical conversations.
Yeah. And so I can speak personally, what my wife and I have loved about classical conversations is it, unlike what a public school might do, it teaches to the kids where their brain is at, what the brain is ready for. And there's also, because it's homeschool, there's not pressure on the kids to hit this standard, this benchmark, and this standard. It works in the younger kids with a lot of memorization work and songs and that sort of thing. And I love it because their minds are like sponges.
Yeah, for sure. And I will, anybody that is listening that is interested in classical conversations, I just have to tell everyone, because when you go to a classical conversations community to observe, because you don't just sign, I mean, you could just sign up, but you want to go observe and see the community. They're worldwide, by the way. So whoever, anybody, any state, United States, there's almost always one within the vicinity of your home. And when you go observe, if you don't have any background knowledge of classical education, like I didn't, it is very bizarre at first. You see these kids reciting, like 5-year-old kids reciting this historical timeline of the world,
the entire world,
reciting Latin verb conjugations, and it looked very robotic and strange, and it seemed like the kids had no clue what was going on. They're just memorizing these facts. But as you dive deeper into the classical model of education and you understand, like you were saying, that memory piece in those early years, they're going to pull from that memory bank later on when they start analyzing and synthesizing information. And so just take it with a grain of salt when you go observe for the first time. 'Cause I walked out, I was like, we are not doing this. This is so weird. And then the director, she said, you know what? Go upstairs and visit our challenge level, which that's your high school level students. See what they're going to amount to in that age. So I did. I went upstairs, and you had like 15-year-old kids, maybe 14, 15-year-olds, they were giving a research presentation as I'm sitting in that room. And I would have thought I was in a master levels college course.
Yes, absolutely.
Their vocabulary, their eloquence. And so after they were done presenting, I actually pulled a few of them aside. And I asked them, hey, have you been in classical conversations since you were young? Because my kid was 5 at the time. And I'm thinking, this is weird for her to memorize all this stuff. And they said yes. And I was honest with them. I was like, hey, all this weird memory work that they're doing at age 5, like, do you feel like it really helped you? And every single one of those kids said yes. One even brought up an example of reading from her biology textbook and noticing the root words and understanding the meanings from what she had memorized back in the lower levels. So that's just a long-winded way of saying, give it a chance, keep an open mind. Because the classical model is a whole new thing to a lot of people.
Now, and you're absolutely right. When you get those kids in that third level of learning that their brains enter into, it is amazing. Like you said, you would think you were in a room with college kids, college graduates even. It is really to that level of where these kids can get. So that's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. I say just trust the process.
Yeah.
Just trust it because it's weird in the beginning, but it somehow it all comes together.
Yeah, I remember being at the beginning and being like, but to my wife, like, yeah, but they have to know why they're memorizing it. Like,
Yes, me
I feel the
too,
need
me
to
too.
tell, and it's
Me
like
too.
everyone that had done it, that's all they kept saying. Trust the process. This is normal. Look how, yeah. So anyway, all right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there you go. A big plug for Classical Conversations. You're welcome,
Yep.
Classical Conversations.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, so another thing I have seen on your pages is this idea of year-round school.
Mm-hmm.
And is this something you do? And if it is, can you explain what exactly you mean by that?
Sure. I am a huge advocate for this. This is the hill that I will die on, is
Okay.
whether you are homeschooling, public schooling, private schooling, like, I don't care. I really truly believe in year-round school.
Mhm.
And when people hear that, they're like, oh, what do you mean? No Christmas break, no
Right.
summer break. And it's really not like that. So
Right.
the way that I like to explain it is in a public school system, or any school system really, you are schooling for, 8 to 12 weeks, whatever. And then you get a little week break. And it's usually around the holidays. And then they will come back from these breaks, or especially summer break, coming back into the new school year after a summer break. And you're spending
Mhm.
like the first 6 weeks of school reviewing all of the things that they learned last year because they've totally forgotten it.
Right.
And talk about what a waste, like the first 6 weeks of
Mhm.
school. That's a huge amount of time.
Yes.
And so for year round, and again, this is just something I experimented a lot with, and I implore any homeschooling parent to just experiment. Don't
Okay.
vary a schedule, just explore. And
Mhm.
so we started doing 6 weeks stints. So we would homeschool Monday through Friday for 6 weeks and then take a week off. And I still felt like we were getting burnt out at the end of those 6 weeks. And when I added up all of the days out of the year, we were actually schooling more than a traditional public school. So I lowered it a little bit. Now the schedule that seems to work best for us is 3 weeks on. So Monday through Friday, one of those days being our homeschool community day. So we're not technically at home
Right.
homeschooling for 3 straight weeks. And then we take a full week off. 3 weeks on, 1 week off, 3 weeks
great.
on, 1 week off. When you add it all up, and I'm still giving 2 weeks around Christmas time,
Of
2
course.
weeks around spring
Okay.
break, 2 weeks in July, just kind of fell that way.
Mhm.
We're schooling 175 days out of the year. So it's not like this crazy thing that you can't wrap your mind around, because if traditional school children are going 180 days,
Mhm.
we're schooling 175 days, but we're not getting these giant long lapses. Even
Right.
the 1 week break that we take off, sometimes I'm thinking, did you forget everything from last week?
Yeah.
It's just amazing how fast knowledge can leave them. And so that year round, we just keep it going. We keep the momentum, and we can move through grade levels more quickly. Like
Of
my
course.
daughter's first grade, most first graders don't get out until June. We're starting second grade work in February.
Yep.
So you're just working with what works for your family and your schedule.
And the other thing about homeschooling, which I feel like is great, there's not this feeling like when when you have kids come to the public school, is like, okay, I got to do this boring thing for 7-8 hours every day, and then I get to go home and have fun. It's amazing how it incorporates just into everyday normal life a lot of the things that you do with homeschooling. So it's not like your kids are like, man, school again. It just
Exactly.
is kind of natural, and it's
That's
like
part of our life. Yep.
exactly. Yeah.
And another thing that I feel like a lot of people, and I maybe one day you can have a pediatrician come on and speak to this, but my first grade students, when I was a public school teacher, some of them had to come to before care. So their parent worked early and they would get dropped off at before care around 7 a.m. Those kids are waking up at 5:30 a.m. to get ready to get to aftercare at 7. And my children, they're sleeping in till 8:30, 9 some days.
Yep.
They're getting 12 hours of sleep a night. It's amazing. And it's something that is just naturally happening. I don't have an alarm that wakes them up or anything. Their bodies are naturally waking up with their own, circadian rhythms. And that's another thing that I feel like I got to make a video on that now that we're talking about it.
Yes.
Because that's something that a lot of people don't think of either. Just like the health. Just the health of being able to get a drink of water when you want, go pee when you want, take sleep and wake up when you want.
And you can go to the bathroom when you need to. unlike at
Yes,
school.
that's right. Yeah, like talk about a health hazard.
I know, right? Yep. So you are so right. Now my kids are, three of my kids are teenagers. One of them is 18. And an amazing thing starts to happen in their older years is number one, the employers in town love them because they can move their school around to whenever they have time, they can get it in, so they can work hours. The employers around here all love our kids, and we'll this would be a good transition to what I want to ask you about next. They all love our kids because they're all so social and they can deal with multiple different ages and types of customers with ease. It's not even a challenge for them. And three, you know, they're all self-starters. They're self-reliant, they're responsible. And what I think makes that difference is, number one, you know, as you start homeschooling, you're more connected in their day-to-day work as they're younger, and as they get older, it just becomes a course of habit. They're in the habit of doing this, and they're so much easier to be ready to pick up and just kind of go get it done on their own. And one of the things I always say about my oldest daughters, 16 and 18 now, they're kind of living like a college lifestyle, because they'll go together and go to a coffee shop in the morning and just bang out a bunch of their work. And you know, when we meet on co-op days, like you know, my wife and I are there making sure throughout in different little ways. But when we go to co-op days and it's time for them to share out what they've learned, it's like they're on it already. Like I didn't even have to walk them through anything. Like they're there. Now, my boy is a little different, have to be on them a little tiny bit more. But that's the great thing. You can adjust to each child, you know, especially compared to a classroom when you get 20, 30 kids and you're trying to adjust to each child, is just kind of.
Now, have you always homeschooled, or did you transition them to homeschooling?
Well, so interesting. So, you know, I taught in public schools for 17 years. And my mom was a teacher and still was when I started teaching, and she was great. She is great. And so as we started talking about our kids going to school, my wife was really more open to the idea of homeschooling. And then, you know, I think it was, you know, taking the kids for the first time for they did like kindergarten screenings. And just to see the pressure that, like, my oldest daughter is very type A and wants to perform, and you know, and just to see they weren't really viewing her as a child. They were just getting her, like, her number, like she's a number and information about her. And it's kind of like, I don't want my kid to be put into that system. So we're homeschooling. So they have all through my teaching career, while I was teaching, always had them homeschooled. And the teachers were always kind of like, oh,
wow,
you homeschool your kids, eh? And they would, the great thing about it was they would come into my classroom, meet me for lunch, you know, so I could still have that involvement. You know, I'd wake up early. Before I went to school, it was really early, you know, so I didn't get a bunch of time, but they'd come with us. And if we did trips as with my classes, sometimes when I had middle schoolers, I guess, or sixth graders, you know, maybe they could tote along in a car behind the bus or something, you know, so.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yes, we have homeschooled all of them. They have not been in school. They will never set foot in a public school again unless it's to go do something there, you know.
Right.
So,
very cool.
Yeah. So let's talk about the big S word here, Jessica. Socialization. Oh, that's my gosh.
One.
Why does this myth keep happening? I posted something 2 days ago on social media. It went through this study of homeschooled kids versus public school kids, and it just showed how much the homeschool kids outperformed them in 7 out of 7 academic areas, and then in 5 areas they destroyed the public school kids. And I posted that, you know, and it's like, hey, it's time to think about homeschooling your kids or whatever. And then this community college professor gets on and is like, yeah, but they don't know how to work with anyone. When I get them, they don't know what to do in group projects. And I'm thinking, if we're just going by, anecdotal evidence. I just had a rocket scientist on here that's a doctor and he worked on the SpaceX flight that is now going to have a lander on the moon, like him and his students. He told me one of the best students he's ever had was a homeschool student. So it is still the stigma out there, no matter what we do, what we show. So what do you think of all this socialization stuff?
I am unique, I guess, among the homeschooling community in that I have seen the other side as a teacher, seeing homeschooled children, yeah, you too, come in, and I had that same bad taste in my mouth. So when I was a teacher, that's why I said earlier, like, I never thought I would homeschool. I thought, if anything, private school, but I will never homeschool because I had a bad taste in my mouth, especially at the elementary level, of kids who would come in the middle of the year who had been homeschooled, and they truly were behind. There was a social deficit and there was an academic deficit. However, I always back that up by saying it was always a unique situation where you could tell that they were not homeschooled properly. And that is also a really controversial thing among the homeschooling community, is that I am a big proponent of there is a right way to homeschool and there is a wrong way to homeschool. So I know a lot of homeschooling families are like, well, there's no wrong way and the child should just, learn as they go, and kind of like that unschooling world, which works for some people, but I just don't operate like that. And so I believe that, yeah, you can really mess your kids up by homeschooling them if you're not making an effort to get them into the community. But I think that's also a rare situation. Like, I just happen to see it from the public school teacher's point of view. And you have to think, well, why were those students coming back to school after being homeschooled? It's usually because there was family issues. There were financial things like that. And so I can't let those situations cloud my judgment now as a homeschool family. And just the classical conversations group that we're a part of now, a lot of the parents in our community have been homeschooling like you forever until their children are grown. And everybody is successful. And that cannot be by chance. And I haven't met one yet that isn't social. If anything, they're overly social.
This is very true.
It's like crazy. My children's social calendar, like, as soon as I get off with you, I'm taking them to dance practice. I mean, we're not hermits. And I had the same thought as a teacher, like, homeschooling is just this weird thing. And now that it's becoming a little more socially acceptable, I know the media is hitting it a lot, sometimes from a negative viewpoint, but either way, at least we're getting attention. I think that this myth hopefully will fizzle out eventually.
Hopefully
but
so.
because people, like you said, that one teacher came, or that professor came to you and was like, well, the ones that I get don't know. That's true. There are students who have been homeschooled and they don't have what we would consider acceptable social skills, but there's a lot of public school students, if not more, who struggle with those same deficits.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the counterpoint, because when you look at a typical public school and you see the socialization that's happening there, I'm not sure that's the bar we should be measuring things to.
Exactly. That's what, again, I say, please go to a school, just sit in the back, just tell the principal, hey, I'm thinking about putting my kid in your school. I'd like to observe a couple classes before I do. You might have to go through a bunch of red tape, because with all of the mass things going on in schools, we have to be careful, and they don't just let anybody in anymore, rightfully so. But if you just, give them your ID, give them whatever you need to go volunteer or observe the classroom, and make a list, start writing down the social interactions that you see. Make a T-chart, positive interaction, negative interaction. And I guarantee, especially at that elementary level, the social interactions that are happening are not these grandiose things that people think they are. But I do agree that the negative interactions are important too. Like, that's why I say, when I take my kids to the playground, I hope they have some kind of little tip with a friend, because I need to help them work through that. I can't just, shelter them from those negative interactions.
That's a good point.
But I also don't want them, watching inappropriate content on school computers, which is a big problem right now. And when I say inappropriate, I mean, like, inappropriate.
Inappropriate.
And so those are the interactions that I am sheltering them from, as any responsible parent should. So I just don't want to get that misconstrued. Like, yeah, negative social interactions are important, but not in a school setting necessarily.
Okay, so you've given me a lot of time, and thank you so much for this. But as I kind of want to wrap up here, can you what bit of advice, or what's something really important that you would want parents who are either A, struggling in their homeschooling, or B, parents who are thinking about homeschooling? Is there some kind of advice that you like to give, or the biggest thing you could remind parents of? Anything like that?
Yeah, I really like to always go back to the roots of, you have grown this child in your womb since the very day one.
Yes.
And you have known what you need to do to protect them in the womb as soon as they're born. You're there every step of the way, as
Yep.
we are designed by God to be.
Correct.
And then to just drop them off with whoever just because they have a certification next to their name, like, you're just trusting that that's the proper way. And so I always want parents to know to trust their instincts. And
Mhm.
like, I don't know anyone who feels like it's instinctually proper to leave that baby who you
Mhm.
nurtured since they were a nothing, just to drop them off. I just trusting your instincts, and then
Mhm.
continuing to trust those instincts even when you are in a homeschooling situation. Like, if I notice something is not working for my kid, I'm going to change it.
Yeah.
And that's an instinctual thing that us as moms and dads and grandparents and whoever caretakers, you just need to follow that feeling and not be afraid to change things up or
Mhm.
go back a grade level. If you're working in second grade curriculum and your kid's really struggling, you have the power to
Yeah.
go back to a first grade level curriculum. And you don't have to worry about the social pressure of little Johnny's working in a first grade book when he's in second
Mhm.
grade, because you don't have that social pressure. So
Right.
biggest thing, trusting the instincts. If it doesn't feel right, it's not right. And if dropping your baby off at a daycare, if you didn't have the financials hanging over your head, would that be something that you would naturally want to do?
Mhm.
I would bet the answer would be no.
I think I agree with you 100%. I would go farther. Like, God's given us as parents everything we need to educate our children. We don't have to look. Never in human history until a few hundred years ago was this even a thought in anybody's mind.
Right.
So I would say that is such great advice. Like, that natural innate desire as a mom, as a dad, it is against that inner
Yeah.
gut feeling to just let go of them for that many hours. And so
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's being overprotective. I would say that's being the right amount protective with your child.
Yeah. Why, just what we're designed to be. And it's not like we have some rough days over here. I mean, I can't tell you how many times
Okay.
I've looked at my
Yes.
husband and said, listen, should we just put them in school? Like, what am I even doing right now? Like, I swear, like, we have those days, but
Yep.
it's not so consistent that it's ruining this experience. Like,
Right.
you're going to have your bad days and you're going to recover. And again, you can change things. You can make it work. If you're really having a rough week, take a week off. Like,
Oh,
you can
man,
do
yes.
that.
Yes. I was just
You
going to
know?
interject that. Like, if it's a really bad day and nothing's clicking, guess what? You can take
Yep.
it off. You're
Yep,
homeschooled.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
excellent. So Jessica, tell us here, and I will have all of this for the audience in the show notes. Tell
Okay.
us the best way people can connect with you, see what you have to offer, and even further than that, maybe even get advice specifically for themselves from you. Is there
Right.
ways people can do all these things?
Yep. Right now, the biggest way is through my TikTok channel or my Instagram, YouTube, any of the social media channels. I just have my website listed wherever the bio is, depending on the channel. And all of my handles are Heavenly Homeschool, all
Yep.
one word, except Instagram. I had to put the underscore in between them. Somebody stole the name. So it's
Oh, man.
Heavenly_Homeschool.
Okay.
And getting me through there, getting into my website where you can put in your email address. Once you put in your email address, if you want my homeschool schedule, my free schedule, that gets sent to you automatically. And then what a lot of people are doing is they're just responding to that email that has the schedule attachment, and we're communicating via email.
Okay.
TikTok is a little tricky. Messaging me on TikTok, everything gets lost in the
Right.
bunch. I'm sure
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
But email specifically, which it's all on my website. And then commenting. I read all of the comments on my videos. Like, it doesn't matter if there's like 500. I will read every single one at some point throughout the week, and I try to respond to everybody. So as long as I have time, but I'm
Yes.
really trying to work hard to respond to everybody. So that's the biggest way, really, is just getting in touch. Eventually I'll set up some kind of, one-on-one coaching calls and things like that once I figure out this world of social media.
Yeah, and I would encourage all of you to do it now, because once you see what Jessica is putting out there on Heavenly Homeschool, you're going to be blown away. And I also saw something that if they give their email, subscribe to your mailing list, that you do like these monthly packs of things to do, like January and February, and that's all free.
Activity packs. I started creating those for my own daughters because I'm homeschooling I'm homeschooling a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and then I've got the 1-year-old. So I was like, let me just make my own little packs every month. And so those just go out for free. I have the full on like 30 something page one is a paid for one, but the freebies are just little packs that I send out every month for anybody that's subscribed to my email list. They just go out automatically.
And I have a list of sites and resources that you actually have your own link to. And I am going to share those, because everything that you have your own link to is an amazing, like, I fully was like, oh, cool, she's with them. Oh, cool, she's advertising. Oh, great. So I want you all to pay attention to those things, and use Jessica's link. Show her some love here, because I can tell already that you wouldn't be connected with a company or a person that does not fit your values as
I was just about to say that. It's before I even started making content, I would follow different homeschooling channels, and some of them come across as very salesy, and you can tell you're being pulled in a direction because they want you to use their code or whatever. Right. And so when I am reached out to by a curriculum company, hey, promote our curriculum and have your viewers use this code, I will use that curriculum personally for like a full 2-3 weeks before I even feel comfortable promoting them. Like, I stand so firm on that, because I just remember being a homeschool mom, seeing all these channels, and they're all promoting different things, and you don't know, do they really even like that curriculum? Do they not? So I'm very particular and selective about who I promote. And I look into their core values as well, not just their sales approach and their prices and things, but like how they started, things like that. So anything I promote hopefully comes across as genuine, because it is something I have deeply put a lot of heart into first.
That's absolutely amazing. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for joining us here on the Homeschool Edge. And down the road, I would maybe love to have you back as you are developing and doing more things. I'd love to.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you, Jessica, and thank you all for joining us in the Teacher's Lounge.